Today when I was trying to pull the card that kind of, is the theme for the message, 3 came out when I used the Mystical Shaman Oracle. And the first one is the seer. And the essence here says the seer represents the capacity to reach beyond the obvious details of life into the hidden realms where information is available to those with discernment to perceive it. This symbol represents psychic perception, intuition, and the capacity to know something without prior exposure. The seer knows the truth, always seeks the truth beyond all else, and sees reality as it truly is without judgment. The seer can read between the lines and understand what is not being said. He represents the power of clarity and being able to recognize patterns. And then the invitation says the seer invites you to trust your intuition and follow it as it leads you forward. You may feel lost when it appears that your hunch is taking you in circles or even through a maze, but the hidden realms don't follow the rules of the two-dimensional map. Trust your gut. Allow your perception of your circumstances to widen, to include the nuances and subtle cues that you normally miss if you take things at face value. The seer has gifted you with his magic. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. Your vision is clear. And this is number 45, so maybe that or 9 means something to you. I think is that a mountain lion in there? There might be a mountain lion and it looks like a crow. I can't really tell because, the way the shading is. But maybe those animals mean something to you. And I'm just going to kind of go along and see where that is. So I feel like this is saying, especially with these 2 that we have in this column, we have the 5 of Wands and we also have the Sun. So the 5 of Wands, sometimes that can be like inner conflict. A lot of times with the Wands, that's spiritual. So maybe this is an inner spiritual conflict. Maybe this is something you're wrestling with, or maybe there's a lot of messages that you're not really getting. Or just in general, there's something that's kind of shaking things up. Now, the 5 of Wands also, if you look at the Rider-Waite deck, they're not fighting with swords. A lot of times this is kind of like minor disagreements or minor shakeups. You know what I mean? This could be something that maybe you're thinking it's bigger than it is, but really isn't. And with the Sun down there, I really feel like this is saying this is lighthearted, that you are meant for happiness. And this is kind of the row or the column that I use for the energy that we're seeing right now. So I feel like this is an energy where, I think that we're happy, but there's this thing here that's kind of, maybe making us, worried that, the happiness that we're having and the good things that we're experiencing, that they're going to fall apart, right? I feel like this, the Sun likes to shine light on things. It illuminates things. So I feel like we're being asked to really look at these things and, see how serious it really is. And in the scope of things, the bigger scope of things, what the reality is. I think a lot of times these little things make us panic, and sometimes that distracts us from what we're trying to do. And in a way, it could be like a test. Those 5 wands that in the Rider-Waite, when they're playing, it's kind of like they're training, they're practicing. So this is maybe something that's kind of like, spiritually kind of train you to kind of like tap into your intuition and kind of use that balance in that, groundedness that we need sometimes, because I think sometimes we get swept away. And then my column of, what we need to work on, what we need to focus on, we have Judgment, and then we have the Fool. So I thought this was kind of interesting. So Judgment, to me, this card always feels like an aha moment. This is like when you finally get that understanding of things. This also can represent grace too. This is understanding that, this is an opportunity to illuminate something as well. We have the Sun there, and we also have, Judgment. I feel like that's, focusing a lot on, hey, this is, pay attention. There's a little bit more behind the scenes that you're not paying attention to. So using your judgment and using your discernment in your intuition is really what I think is needed here. So I feel like this is a bigger understanding. This column is always my, what we need to work on or whatever. And I feel like with the Fool, we're kind of being asked to kind of trust that intuition, to trust that illumination, that this is part of something that's going to kind of bring you to where you want to be. But also judgment can sometimes also be like a grace feeling. I kind of feel that way sometimes. It's like, you struggle, and you do things right and you just can't get it. And sometimes I feel like, spirit, whatever, your higher self, or, that thing that I don't like to name because I don't like to do that. I feel like this is saying like, okay, fine. Well, here, it kind of gives you that little nudge that like, it's going to be okay. You know what I mean? It's not that big of a deal. So chill out. And then the Fool, this is part of our path. This is part of our path to give us that lightheartedness and allow us to kind of feel into things. And so my third column, we have the 9 of Pentacles, and then we have the Lovers. So this is kind of interesting. This is my column of what we have around us, what we can use for, to help us on whatever this is that we're trying to work on, our path or journey, if it is a connection, because we do have the Lovers, but we also have the 9 of Pentacles. 9 of Pentacles is a very independent person. Now, she's wealthy, but she's wealthy and abundant in so many different ways. This is somebody who is confident in themselves and they're aware of, their value. So this being something that is an asset, being something that we have to help us. I feel like this is saying understanding your worth can kind of help you come through this, because sometimes there's things that, and I know me specifically, I have an issue because, and I don't like to like lean on my ADHD too much, but it's a thing. I have to accept it. So I'm going to accept it. It doesn't make me any less of a person. I don't over identify with it, but it's a thing. And a lot of times, because I want to do things right, or I don't want to let people down, sometimes I'll just struggle by myself. And I'm kind of going through that right now. And instead of like, saying, hey, you know what, I'm like this many months past on this, nope, I'll just try to handle it myself. And sometimes that fierceness and independence can be a little bit of a bad thing, but not if you're understanding your worth. So this isn't like, being stubborn. This isn't somebody who is standing their ground and saying like I do all the time. This is understanding that, you can be independent and you can know your worth, but you can also lean into those connections with the Lovers, right? This is understanding that, you have that ability to maintain your own while also connecting with others. And I think that's so important when we understand that fact, when we understand that the value of self only makes the value of the connection, and whatever that connection is, so much greater, right? When you have two whole people, it's just beautiful. When you have people that don't, try to take from the other, or, lean on the other to, overcompensate for what they lack. When we kind of understand our worth and that person understands our worth, there's so much potential there. And so I feel like this as an asset is saying that you understand that. This also could be, because sometimes the Lovers is that connection that we feel within ourselves. This is our, our feminine and our masculine side, our, spiritual and emotional, and our practical and doing, right? This is the ability to organize and also being able to be a free spirit at the same time, right? This is somebody who is very well-rounded. So I feel like that's saying that's part of what this is. And then my last column is my column of kind of like the outcome that we're looking for, or kind of like points towards the direction. It doesn't necessarily have to be an outcome, but it also can be kind of like, what this is kind of like moving towards. So with the World and the 10 of Swords. So the 10 of Swords, a lot of times, it looks like it's a death. It looks like it's a devastation or a betrayal. But I don't feel like that. These are, the World also is, kind of like an ending in a way, but it's also a beginning. So this can be something I feel with the 10 of Swords being an ending of an deeply emotional and mental strife, right? This also can be, you're at a point where you're able to be more productive in the world, and you're able to function better because of all them swords means that you have been through many battles. This is somebody with experience, and your experience is something that you can bring into the world, not only for you and for other people, but for the collective consciousness in general. This is somebody who has had those lessons, and we're able to be more productive and effective because, each one of those swords is a fight that we overcame, right? We had the sword. And the world card is kind of similar in that way too. Because if you look at the 4 fixed signs, those are the signs that represent the completion of that season. They're the ones that see it out to the end, right? Because you have the cardinal signs, like me, I'm an Aries. And then I have a lot of mutable signs because I'm a Pisces moon and I'm also a Gemini rising. So, I don't finish a lot. But, we have those fixed signs. They are the ones that get things done. They're the ones that get it taken care of, right? We're the initiators, us, cardinals. We're the one that's like, come on, hey, let's do this really cool thing. And the mutable signs, they're the ones that kind of like, do the learning and do the teaching. And they're kind of like in the middle of it, right? They're the bridge between, the beginning of the thing, the inspiration, and the end, which is, those fixed signs. That's the completion of it. So then we go on to the next season. So I always think that's fascinating. So the world, that's kind of what the world represents. It's, being complete in those 4 corners, right? In those 4 elements, and there's those 4 seasons. So I feel like this is definitely saying that, you have a lot of knowledge, and, whoever this is, right now it might seem a little shaky, but you have so much perception and so much knowledge. You've been through a lot. This is your time to kind of show what you got, right? It's like, okay, well, you learned your lesson, so let's apply it. You can be a big player in the world. And so then we have the moon, which I thought was beautiful because, I love the moon. And she is number 37. And it says, every 28 days, the moon manifests a steady progression from darkness to light and then back again. This phenomenon in our skies has a powerful impact on our human psyches. It offers us the certainty that after periods of emptiness and darkness, there's a light waiting so we can be reborn to a new phase. This calls to mind a native African prayer to the moon. May our lives be renewed as yours is. The moon also has a strong influence on the ebb and flow of the waters of the earth, and the same power in turn affects humans' feelings and emotions and mirrors their rising from or hiding back into the unconscious. And then the invitation says the moon spends equal time in the darkness as it does the light of the sun. And now it comes to remind you of this balance. Have you been too focused on the outer achievements, productivity, or social engagements? Or have you spent too much time hidden in the outer world and not wanting to interact or show your face? Meditate on the significances of the moon's cycle and let it gently guide you out of your bottomless depths. Head back to the world of the outer expression and connection with others. Let it help you make time for yourself, your feelings, and your essential human and spiritual needs. And especially with, that little story on myself, I feel like this is really saying that. I feel like a lot of times we think success means that we have to be absolutely perfect and that everything that we go through is because we didn't do something right, or that the people around us, they can't see the imperfect us, right? I feel like that's not the goal. The goal is not to be so darn perfect that nobody can, find fault in you or that you don't need help, right? That's the whole point of, being a whole person is, you're accepting the good and the bad, the turning of the wheels, the whole journey, right? Going through that inspiration, doing the work, and then mastering it, right? And then you go on to the next thing. And then that's what life's about. So I feel like with Pachamama over there and number 40, this is, Mother Earth. When you look at the inscription, it talks about, being accepting of, the good and the bad, because then you're kind of understanding the abundance and even being able to be alive. To be here is a gift. To recognize all the things around us and have gratitude for what we're able to do and what is possible, the potential. So I feel like this is why she's there. And I feel like, we have that. We have the moon, and then it's kind of like saying, there's like a connection happening here. So I feel like this is somebody who's very connected with their inner emotions and with Mother Earth and with the moon, with the energies of nature. I feel like you're tapped into who you are and you understand that you have value, right? We all have value. We innately have value. That's what the Pachamama card also talks about that. But it also talks about, you know, giving to and giving respect. And to tap on yesterday's message when I was talking about the importance of receiving, right? Receiving help. That doesn't make you less. That just makes you allow somebody else to appreciate you, right? So you appreciate and you appreciate back. And then we go all the way to the other side. And since I had the moon, I decided, you know what, I'm going to pull a Moonology card, which happened to be full moon in Leo, which, you know, this is a new moon in Virgo coming up. But I feel like this is telling us, oh, there's a crow calling, not to let your pride get in the way. And yes, because I feel like you've gained so much wisdom, intuition, and self-love. There's a big, huge emphasis on understanding your worth and integrating the knowledge and the lessons that we've learned, and realizing that, you know, that does not mean that we have to do it alone. I hope this helps somebody today, and I thank you so much for being here. See you tomorrow.